How are you doing? I'm Martin from Gardens for Life and Birdland Homestead. Welcome to our 23rd questions and answers session and live chat. If you'd like to suggest a topic, please do so in the chat on whatever platform you're watching this on. And if you're watching this afterwards, you can also download the audio for these podcasts in our membership forum, on our membership page. And we'll just wait for people to come in and we'll get started. We have a bunch of questions here. People actually emailed in and asked on the comments as well, even beforehand. And please let me know if you have any questions at all. It's not necessarily only a questions and answers session. It's more of a session just to let you know what's new and what's been happening around here. And also just to get to talk to people and give the audience a chance to come back to us. Let us know what you think, and if there's anything in particular that you noticed with the seasons or with your plants in the garden or insects, let us know in the comments. I'll be happy to read out your comments if you want me to. And please put question in all capital letters in the beginning of your question if the question is directed towards me. So I can put it on the screen and I'll answer it, or at least I'll do my best anyway to answer it. Hello, Mike. How are you doing? You're very loyal to us now, coming on to the questions and answers and the live chat every week. Well, it's great to have you here, and Vanessa, of course. Now, let me have a look. So this week has been a huge week, actually. We just put the winter selection pre-sale on, which we usually do around mid-August, just to give people a chance to reserve or to buy their plants in advance that we're going to have going out from November onwards. We usually harvest things as they come into season, so it usually depends on the season. Like sometimes it can be a month off, but from November onwards, usually most of our plants will have died back and we'll end up with some kind of a hard frost around then. So all of those tuberous plants, especially the oca and yacon, will be dying back in November for sure. At least here in the Midlands of Ireland anyway. Down in the southwest where it doesn't freeze, they may very well even survive the winter. If there's anyone on here in County Cork or Kerry, please let me know. And I was just wondering, if you don't get a frost, do these tuberous plants actually keep growing? Is anyone here down there actually growing oca or mashua, for example, or yacon? Any of those kind of ancient tuberous plants they're vegetables, for those of you who don't know. And they're very easy to grow. Let me see now. The Jerusalem artichokes are definitely becoming more popular. And it's not only as a food plant, but also even as a wildlife plant as well. Makes for a really great habitat for both the insects and the birds as well. Like the dried stalks are perfect for making insect piles in the winter. And during the growing season, even you can use them as a little bit of a summer fence or like a summer hedge, block the wind and to stop, just to not have any views to the road, for example. So I have a whole bunch of questions here that I will go through in a minute as people are connecting. And we'll do our €50 voucher raffle a little bit later on when people are online, when we hit a critical number, I suppose. But we won't leave it too long for those of you who are here for the raffle. It's not really a raffle, it's kind of more of a draw, but you can enter it for free. For those of you who don't know, we sell plants on our website and you can take a look at it. It's just gardensforlife.ie/shop. And if you're wondering why I read out things, it's because some of you may be on the audio only, because it is a sort of a half podcast, half video live session. And we'll be using the audio as a podcast afterwards, basically. And yeah, so our winter selection is on there now, and we also have our alliums now. We've harvested the elephant garlic and the orphrey, and those have actually now gone to the point where they're actually grown again. So all the ones that I left in the ground, all the garlic and all the perennial onions, like the potato onion, even the Egyptian onions, they're all rooting now. So I'm going to plant a whole bunch of them in a few little patches in the garden just to have them for the years to come. Just because Egyptian walking onions, they do take a while to establish, but once they do, they produce an awful lot of onion. And also the little bulblets, so you can multiply your stock numbers as well. So you'll never end up having to buy seed. So let me take a look. Well, that's great, Mike. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. And if you come up with any questions during the week, you can always email me. It's just contact@gardensforlife.ie. There you go. That's the email address there. Feel free to email me. And I'd like to get more questions in advance of these sessions. Not that I bother researching them too much, but I just basically put them all in a little list, so I have them ready to go in the beginning of the episode, so I don't have to go through my email account or anything like that while I'm on live here. We will be doing some interviews as well in the coming weeks and months, so mainly to make use of all of our streaming features here on StreamYard, but also because we can, and it'll be very interesting for the audience to see what other people in Ireland are doing, like homesteaders or even growers. We'd like to ask them some questions and see what works for them and whether they're growing some perennial vegetables like we do. And actually, we were thinking of that. We were going to just support some of the gardens out there, as we always do, like not only the community gardens, but even fellow homesteaders as well. We'd like to get people growing perennial vegetables. And all those plants you can multiply from cuttings. So let me have a look here. Hello, Kevin. How are you doing? Thanks for coming back. Oh, you got the garlic. Very good. Yeah. Kevin, that garlic is going to grow much bigger when you plant. That's the elephant garlic. It'll grow much bigger when you planted one clove at a time. The ones you've been sent were the first batch, and they were actually the ones that were grown in the same spot for 3 years in a row. So 3 years, one clove, and 3 years, 3 growing seasons of growth. So first you end up with a big bulb like this, like typical of the elephant garlic, which is quite impressive. And then in the next year, each of those cloves split again if you don't separate them and split them and plant them again. And I have a video out just recently about a 3-year-old harvesting a 3-year-old elephant garlic. And I did like 4 plants I harvested, and I ended up with like probably a bucket worth of garlic. So that's pretty good. Probably actually a heap bucket at that. And as I said, the ones you would have been sent actually were a little smaller than they will grow. That's why we usually throw in a few extra. So again, if you have any questions, please let me know, and just type the word question into the comments or into the chat. So I have a question here. What vacuum sealer? This is not really a gardening question. So we do homesteading as well. Anything to do with homesteading. I'm not very good at power systems, but some of you guys in the audience here probably know more about power systems than I do. Would you just mind confirming whether the volume is good on this microphone right here? Can you hear me loud and clear, or is it too loud? Please let me know in the comments. And so what vacuum sealer do you use, and how often do you use it? So that's a good question. I've got 2 vacuum sealers, one from Lidl for €30 and one from Amazon, actually. It's a Food Saver. It's an American brand, and it was €100. And I didn't realize, actually, that was a good offer, because now they cost about €180. And I was kind of shocked to see they've gone up in price so much in the last 2 years. But the higher quality tool is obviously the Food Saver for well over €100 now. And it's just basically provides a better seal. Its seal is much wider, or maybe twice as wide as the Aldi or Lidl one. And basically, it's just easier to work with. And it's a little bigger as well. Other than that, the Lidl one is fine. The €30 sealers work fine. If that's all you have, you're definitely better off to buy, obviously, always buy as good at tools as you can afford, so the best tools you can afford. But if you haven't got a backup yet, it's always good to have a cheaper version as well. So we like to have little tools and branded tools as well. Tools for the kitchen, such as vacuum sealers, and other tools in the shed as well. Like basically, it's always good to have a backup, even if you're not going to use it very often. I don't think anything sold in Lidl or Aldi, as in tool-wise, is meant to be used more often than 10 or 20 times a year. And that's about as often as we use the vacuum sealer. We don't use it enough, really. And there's another question here, also related to vacuum sealing. When vacuum sealing a bag of rice, do you take the rice out of the bag, or do you leave it in it and open it up so that the air gets sucked out? That's a very good question. Actually, it's kind of pointless. It's kind of pointless even vacuum sealing rice, because it only adds 1 extra year onto it. Same as beans. If you don't bother vacuum sealing them, or with white rice, it'll last for 3 years. You can add on 1 year, so it'll last for 4 years instead, if you vacuum seal it. But if you put it into a mylar bag with an oxygen absorber, it'll last for over 20 years. And I haven't done that much, actually, I must admit. I must do a bit more of it just to learn more about it, and I'll make a video about it then. How about that? Definitely remove the rice from the bag. In general, I wouldn't even bother vacuum sealing rice, but if you want to, you can, especially if the rice is not in a plastic bag. If there's moisture going to get into it, you could vacuum seal it, and why not if you have plenty of bags. And if you like to do that type of thing, I just wouldn't bother, because it doesn't make much of a difference unless you add the oxygen absorber, of course. Again, buy the higher quality bags for the vacuum sealer. It'll last an awful lot longer. The seal actually lasts longer. And I found that a lot of the cheaper bags, even the good bags, sometimes lose their seal as well. So I would remove the rice if I was vacuum sealing it. I would remove it from its original bag and then put it into the vacuum seal bag. And the only trouble is you have to write the date on it then at that point, and all the rest, and what it is, I guess. Well, you can tell by looking at it. But again, really, there is no point. I mean, vacuum sealing can be handy for many things, dried foods mainly, or even tea, for example, like herbal teas, maybe even tea that you grow and dry in your own gardens. I'm actually about to put out a video soon of drying comfrey, and I have put out a video on harvesting the leaves and drying them, but those are dry now. That was 10 days ago, and I'm going to make a video on them being finished. I'm probably going to vacuum seal them as well, just to make them smaller to store, but also to make them last longer. The less moisture, the better, but also the less oxygen eaten away at it is good too. I think the oxygen basically just fuels the bacteria. Anyway, a lot about vacuum sealing now. For those of you interested in food storage, please ask questions, but we'll try and keep the topics fairly diverse. Excuse me for a moment. I have to drink water. Oh, Jez, you go awful dry talking and talking. So let me see here. There's a question here from Mike. What is the minimum time you'd leave a mushroom compost pile before you would use it either in the ground or in pots? Well, I would suggest leaving it for 2 months during the summer, or at least 3 or 4 months during the winter, because it takes time to break down. And if you leave it in a big pile, in its original pile, when it gets dumped out, it will actually break down much quicker. It'll heat up more, and the bacteria will break down the compost a lot quicker and raise the acidity of it. So in the beginning, mushroom compost is very acidic, and it steams and smells. But after a few months, minimum two months, I would say, to use it in the garden. But in pots, probably a bit longer. I'd say twice as long, just to make sure it's broken down enough, because it'll settle a lot. Like your compost will basically be only about half the size, maybe 60% the size after it has broken down a bit. But it's quick in the summer. We got some compost delivered there 2 months ago, and it's already ready to go. So we're going to start using it, and we're going to make a little workshop out of it. Actually, Hannah Mole from the permaculture in Strokestown, they actually are coming to do a workshop here, and we'll be using our new mushroom compost for that workshop. But again, the longer the better. Just get more mushroom compost, or get more compost in general delivered than you need, or than you think you need, and you'll use it eventually. You know, it's never going to be a loss, and unless it's covered in weeds afterwards. But I always think, you know what, nature knows best, and nature is perfect, in the words of Sepp Holzer in the Alps. It does help the soil life actually diversify more, and it drives it on by having just any kind of plants on top. Of course, it's an awful nuisance having to clean up weeds and grasses, but if you just tarp it, it'll be fine. Or even if your compost pile is already overgrown, which happened to us this year and last year, all of a sudden it just happens. You know, you just look away for a couple of months, and then there you go. In late summer, you get all the weed seeds flying around and landing on your compost pile, and it starts small. But if you don't address it straight away, you might just tarp it, unless it's basically between probably late September until May. I wouldn't bother tarping any piles. It's better for the rain to actually penetrate that compost, and it keeps it moist and good for the worms as well. So let me see here. I'll take another question from the notes here. Will you be doing any Scarecrow workshops in the future? The crows are pecking my mulch pads to bits. Yeah, so I've had the opposite problem. I've had blackbirds actually figuring out that the no-dig garden has loads of worms in it, and they're just pegging all the bits of compost onto the wood chip pads, which were lovely and clean until they mixed them all up. So I basically come along and scrape it away a little bit again, and eventually they ease off anyway. We'll just keep putting a bit of fresh wood chip on top of the pads, and that'll be okay. But with crows, geez, what can you do about crows? Have you got any dogs? Because our dogs would keep a crow away. If the crows come and peg the garden, or if they go scratching the garden, of course, you might not be able to keep the dogs out there all the time, but even if the dogs have a presence, that keeps away, it keeps down the bird pressure, so to speak, and the rodent pressure too. Our dogs actually do go around, one of our dogs anyway, goes around looking for rodents all the time. And definitely, she'd keep away crows, all right. But it's an awful nuisance, all right. It's actually kind of been the #1 pest, so to speak, in the garden. It's actually not really a pest. It's just a nuisance having the birds actually mix your garden bed, the compost on your garden beds, with your wood chips on the pad. So you're better off just cover it one more time, and it'll be okay. Let me see here. Hopefully the birds will ease off. Do you take cuttings from herbs? And if so, when do you do that? Michael here's asking, I know rosemary can be propagated that way, but how about others like thyme, oregano? You use fresh seeds to propagate them. So like with most plants, you can propagate them by cutting or by seed. With kitchen herbs, Mediterranean kitchen herbs especially, most of them will do better from seed, actually, I found. Rosemary, I mean, it's just quicker to do it from cutting, because the cutting is bigger than the seed. It roots quicker, it has leaves already. But it's a bit of a nuisance. Like oregano, for example, or thyme, I start from seed every year, just because I like to plant new plants out. Thyme actually has not been very perennial for us. Oregano so far, very perennial, very good, very reliable. Lovage, very good. All those kind of herbs as well. Rosemary sometimes dies off on us, so we'll have to keep starting more plants. I don't like to have to replace plants all the time, though. I just basically grow something else, whatever grows well, and whatever doesn't mind our climate here. Not too bad for droughts this year now. We had a bit of a drought there for about 4 weeks. We had very little rain or no rain. But in general, yeah, most of the herbs, I'd grow any of the herbs from seed, except for mint, which is better grown from the rhizome or the root, or the rosemary is easy enough to grow from cuttings. But it's very reliable like that, but it takes an awful long time. Rosemary takes like a year to grow. A year just to get a small little plant, basically. So let me see here. What's your favorite herb and why? Like, what do you mean, like medicinal herb or culinary herb? I guess medicinal herb, probably great mullein because it's multifunctional. You can use a leaf as a tea for the lungs. It's an expectorant. It clears your lungs. Helps to get rid of that mucilage. And it also, the flowers are great for making an oil for the ear. If you have an ache, it works really well like that. But and it also looks really nice in the garden. The great mullein has these lovely yellow flowers, and it's a biennial though, it's not a perennial. Does anyone here know of a perennial mullein? Please let me know. I'd love to know, because I'd grow it. I'd still be growing Olympic mullein, that's Greek mullein, which has bigger flowers and orange flowers as well. But great mullein is actually a wildflower of Europe. Marsh woundwort is another favorite, but you know, these are all great for the insects as well. They produce an awful lot of nectar, so they have, there's all kinds of different yields of these plants. Not only a medicinal yield, it can be a food yield as well, and honey as well potentially, if you have bees in your garden and if you grow the flowers specifically for them. We always incorporate flowers in all of our gardens, and herbs as well, just because it attracts the insects and it just generates so much life. Like, it's just a lot of biodiversity, and that's what keeps the garden balanced and pests, so to speak, free. Now let me see here. Now we have a question here. Have you ever grown eucalyptus? Do you know if it's possible in Ireland or outdoors? Grow it outdoors. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I do know of people who have grown eucalyptus, all right, but I don't know what variety. I'm sure there is a million different varieties. Not too sure if you can grow the one that's great for, like, you know, the heat cream, you know, the tube of red tube of cream you can get that you put on sore muscles. Not too sure if that's the same eucalyptus you can grow in Ireland. But I did see some grown in Kerry as well, in a park, and there's probably no frost down there though. So I'm not sure how frost hardy it is, but it's worth looking it up on a website called pfaf.org. So that's Plants for a Future, pfaf.org. Just type in eucalyptus. Okay, that ended up not being a link. I'll make that into a link. So take a look at the chat there, and I'll put in that. I can only recommend that website because we use it a lot. Plantsforafuture.org. That's where you can find out the frost hardiness and the medicinal rating and the food rating, and is there other uses for the plant as well. Now, another question from Mike. Do you have any plans for the next seed swap? Well, there's not much of a point in having a seed swap, I guess, until spring. That's when most of them would be hosted. But it could be a good idea to have one in the fall anyway, because that's when people save their seeds, and that's when the seeds are fairly fresh as well. A lot of seed saving is done in late summer, especially off of flowers and fruits, of course. Actually, what's the point in waiting? We might as well host one, but we also want to host a harvest festival as well. We might just combine it into a seed and plant and harvest festival, like a seed and plant swap and harvest festival, where people can bring in their things that they grow in the garden and just swap it. We'll let you know, and if you're on our email list, you can find out more. It's free to join. Just go to gardensforlife.ie/subscribe, and we send out probably 2 or 3 emails a week and we'll just let you know if there's anything going on, if there's any events coming up or any kind of sale going on, or whenever we have a new video out, for example, or that type of thing. Let me have a look here. And also, if you want to find out whether there's any events coming up, and if you want to watch the videos of the previous seed and plant swaps, they're all available on our events page on the website, gardensforlife.ie/events. For those of you on the video, I do read things out just in case people are listening on the audio afterwards, especially. Now, let me have a look here. Oh, thanks, Anne. Thank you for letting me know that the volume level is good. So I have another question here. What's the top 5 medicinal herbs to grow, in your opinion? Michael is asking here. Just bear with me now, a drink of water. So there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. I don't even know where to start. Just remember, I'm no expert, but I do know of quite a few plants. Actually, we were growing a lot of the flowers, especially echinacea, valerian, and all the usual great mullein. We were growing all of those in the gardens long before we ever found out about their medicinal use. And we got a book by DK, and it's actually an encyclopedia of medicinal herbs. And we looked through the book, and Jesus, we were thinking, Jesus, we have like half of these plants in the garden already. That's great. Or at least we know of them anyway, and we know that we can grow them here in Ireland. Probably the top herbs, probably the most commonly used herbs actually in society today in Ireland would be definitely echinacea and valerian. There's probably a load of other ones that I don't know of. If you guys have any opinion on which ones, please let me know in the comments or in the chat. What's your favorite herb? Type it in there. I'd love to know. So we grow both. We grow echinacea, which is great for the immune system, boosting the immune system, activating it quickly. When you know you're sick, you have a viral infection or something like that, you can activate your immune system in a matter of hours instead of 3 days, so that you can prolong and maybe even mitigate the disease cycle. So you can basically, you can buy echinacea tincture in any pharmacy as well, or you can make it yourself at home. We will make a video on tinctures actually at some point soon in September or October, when we get down to the homesteading part of the year. We usually in August, we're still busy propagating plants as well. So the other plants I would recommend would be, even kitchen herbs are great. Thyme is a really good one, great for the lungs and the immune system. Is antibacterial, antiviral. I'm not sure about that, but oregano as well, rosemary, they're all really good for you, and they're actually common kitchen herbs, and you can grow those yourself in the garden. But flowering herbs, they actually all flower, and they all attract beneficial insects as well. So feeding the insect is one thing a herb can do, and you can get a yield off it too, in the form of either flowers or even leaves, I suppose, even for culinary uses in the kitchen to make your food nicer, or soups. Like lovage, for example, has lots of health benefits, which I don't know of, but I know it's really nice in soups. So lovage is perfect for adding to a stew in the wintertime, or any kind of soup. The great mullein, of course, is the favorite because even though it's the only one that's not perennial, the great mullein, again, the leaves are great for making a tea for the lungs, and the flowers are great for making an oil for the ear. So it has multiple uses, and it looks nice in the garden too. It's easy to grow from seed, and when it goes to seed, you just let the stalk dry after it's done flowering, this time of year now, around August, late August, and you can collect the seeds whenever, on a dry day, basically, when the stalk has gone completely dry. You can just put it in a bag and shake it around, and you got 100,000 seeds to share with all your friends. And basically naturalize all of these herbs that are almost lost in nature. These are all native wildflowers, and a lot of them anyway. Like the yarrow is another one I would grow. Yarrow is also known as globe flower or soldier's woundwort, as it was known as during Roman times. And that was the beginning of the Iron Age as well, as it happens. I guess iron caused a lot of wounds back in the day. Maybe that's why the Roman Empire was able to spring up in the first place. And soldier's woundwort, or yarrow, was basically introduced into the British Isles back in the day. And now we have it here on the side of the road. Sometimes we see it here in County Roscommon anyway. And the yarrow is very useful. You can eat the leaves in salads in limited numbers, but you can also just crush the leaves and put a poultice on a bleeding wound, and it'll actually clot the blood. Same as cayenne pepper. But that's not as easy to grow, and that takes a greenhouse to grow. So I would suggest going with valerian. You can use that to make a tincture to help you sleep. And again, I'm not a practicing herbalist. Little disclaimer here, talk to a professional if you can't sleep, but please talk to a herbalist before you talk to a regular medicinal doctor, I would suggest, because all doctors used to be herbalists before 100 years ago. So I believe that herbs, nature knows best, and nature can help you, and the side effects are typically speaking positive rather than the contrary. And definitely the Mediterranean kitchen herbs, the valerian, the echinacea, the great mullein, marsh woundwort would be good too, although we haven't used it yet, but we're growing it in the garden and it's really nice. And we have that available on our winter selection on the shop as well. And we're going to do our little raffle. For those of you waiting, hanging in there, we'll do our little giveaway in a minute now, soon. So yeah, there's so many different herbs I'm not even thinking of at the moment now. And yeah, please let me know what your favorite medicinal herb in the garden is. I have a question about someone else is saying here, I have a question about raspberry plants. I was given some cuttings a few years ago from a friend, and I don't know the variety. They do flower, but they've gotten very little fruit. So I would appreciate any advice. I have a raised bed where they spread, and I want to dig them up to plant them at a south-facing wall to basically get a bigger harvest. So you're looking for a bigger harvest. Should I wait until the winter, until the leaves are gone, until they're dormant? Or could I do it now? You want to expand your harvest, your raspberry harvest. Please advise. So the first thing, with fruits, anything that produces sugar, flowers, or fruit, you need to have as much sunlight as possible. You don't necessarily need full sun, but full sun will help. It'll make the plant more productive. With raspberries, definitely wait until winter time. You're better off to wait until winter until they're dormant, just because the plants will take all the energy from the leaves back into the root zone and store it there and expand its roots as well, make them stronger, and it'll not give the plant too much of a shock if you don't transplant it in the middle of the growing season. It'd be like waking you up in the middle of a sleep or something like that. Instead of, I don't know, I can't really explain it. With plants, it's the opposite way of with people or animals, I guess. But definitely any kind of transplanting is best done in the winter time to not shock the plant too much, but also to conserve its energy. And that said, I have done a lot of transplanting lately, bare root in the middle of summer. You can do it with lots of different plants, but raspberry plants, you can do it, but depends on how many you have. Like we have probably 1,000 raspberry plants and many different varieties, so we don't mind transplanting a few. But again, definitely a south-facing wall will help, and I would suggest planting maybe a hardy kiwi or maybe even a fig tree or a grapevine alongside of the wall as well, so that you have something taking the sunlight higher up on the wall. Because it'll, it's all a harvest, and it only costs about a tenner to begin with. It's a good investment. You'll always get something out of it. Raspberries are great because they take very little maintenance other than cutting the stalks out, like the old stalks after it's done fruiting. And with primocanes, you get 2 fruiting cycles the first year and on the same wood again next year. Whereas with regular raspberries, you only get raspberries. When is that again? Last year's wood anyway. Let me see here. No. Let me know if you have any more questions. Let me see here. So we have a question by Adrian here. Sorry, I have to sometimes do this because the camera is right in front of my screen, so it's kind of difficult to see. Excuse me, I'm still drinking a little bit of caffeine at the moment. Even though it's this late in the day, I don't like to do that, but we try and take it easy on the coffee now. At what time of the year can I transplant strawberries? And is it too early to propagate raspberries from cane cuttings? I basically explained that, but I've tried to grow root the canes actually after cutting them, the fresh canes, and it's not very successful. You're better off to use the roots. And I assume, Adrian, you're talking about transplanting the root, like digging up the root and each of the canes from the raspberry to transplant it and put it elsewhere to multiply your stock of raspberry canes. I think you should wait until the winter time. With strawberries, you're better off to do it in the springtime, but you can actually, it depends. With strawberries you have tip layering as well, so what happens is you get the shoots, when they start multiplying, the mother plant makes shoots and it actually just roots, and wherever it roots it makes a new plant. So I would just facilitate that if your strawberry plants are actually trying to make new plants and are trying to spread, basically, I'd facilitate it. I'd put them somewhere where they can do that, or even put pots underneath and let them root into the pots. That works really well to get new strawberry plants. But I found that, generally speaking, last year's strawberry plants won't do too well fruiting. So you kind of need to have fresh plants every year. So it is a little bit of maintenance, and I haven't bothered. I have 14 varieties. I used to have 14 varieties of strawberries, but a lot of them actually didn't do too well on their own. Like, they do grow in wood chips, but they kind of got shaded out by a lot of the other plants as well. And strawberries grown on the ground works fine, but they don't do too well after 2 or 3 years of being planted, because they'll basically grow too densely, and then the fruit will eventually go rotten because of the lack of airflow. So yeah, no, strawberries a little bit different. Next question. There's another question here. The Egyptian walking onions have finished growing this year. I have harvested the onions at the top of the stems. Can I transplant the parent root? If you want to move them, so the Egyptian walking onions, for those of you who don't know, is a perennial onion. It could stay put. You could leave it where it is forever. And that's the idea with perennial vegetables. You don't disturb the original plant. But if you want to move it for a logistical reason in the garden, or if you want to plant something else in that area, you could, but please do move it somewhere where you can leave it permanently, and maybe even mulch it with a bit of wood chip as well, just to stop the weeds from growing around it, because it's unnecessary to have to weed around perennial plants in general, especially the kind of ones that are growing quite big and robust, like the Egyptian walking onion. After a year, I planted some last year and they grew huge this year. They're like basically probably maybe like 2.5, 3 feet tall, and that size of bulbs in the bottom. I'm not going to dig them up. I'm going to leave them because I want them to keep producing the bulblets on top. Just take the bulblets, separate them, maybe dry them to separate them if you want to, and then stick them in the ground wherever you want another Egyptian walking onion patch. And for those of you looking for Egyptian walking onions, we also have some available on our shop, still on our website. We also have elephant garlic and orphrey, which is a bulbous leek, and it's a Belgian national vegetable. They do seem to like it there. Now let me see here. Elizabeth saying, Hello, Martin. Glad to be here. We're glad to have you here too. Thank you for joining us. Let me have a look here. There's another question. Can all herbs be grown together, or are there any of them that should be planted separately? There isn't really any kind of allelopathic herb, like perennial herbs, like especially herbaceous perennials, plants that grow during the growing season, and the frost basically knocks them back down to the ground, and then they're below the ground level. So you can you can grow any of the herbs together. I don't think there's any trouble. What we usually do is we plant one or two herbs, or even flowering herbs, at the end of every garden bed, just to bring in beneficial insects, to feed good insects and pollinators, so that they hopefully will take care of our crops as well. But look up Toby Hemingway and polycultures. There is a video on YouTube about that. And you can grow different plants that benefit one another together, very close together, so that the root exudates, or the excess nutrient that the plant produces, goes to the soil life, and the soil life makes it available to everybody. So all the other plants around can benefit from other plants' surplus, basically, kind of like a community in people. And that's what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to build community, and we want to host more events as well to do so. So let me see here. One more question about onions. All of my onions this year produced seed heads. Does this reduce the size of the bulb? Yeah, you have to chop them as the seed stalk emerges. Not sure about regular onions, but I know with all of the perennials, especially garlic, you have to, they call it deadhead. It's an unnecessary word. Basically chop the flower off, or the flowering head, before it even goes to flower or seed, because it's only burning up the energy of the bulb below. That's what it does. It's a biennial. They gather up energy in the first year, and then they go to seed in the second year. That's all of the perennials. So if you want to enter the free draw, here we go. Drum roll, as it's called. If you want to enter the draw, just type the word enter in all capital letters into the chat, and we will pick a winner at random using a random number generator. Actually, there's a website even that can pick the random comment out of YouTube videos and the likes. So this week's winner will receive a €50 voucher for our online shop. So let me take a look here. So just put the word enter in all capital letters. It's free to enter the prize giveaway, so you can win a €50 voucher for our online shop. And online shop, here is the URL for it: gardenforlife.ie/shop. We sell all kinds of different potted plants, herbaceous perennials, perennial vegetables, trees, willow, hybrid willow and poplar cuttings, berry bush cuttings, loads of different stuff. Japanese wineberries. We've got garlic and all of the alliums as well. The whole allium family we're expanding on as well, because they're perennial. You can just grow them, and they take almost no maintenance whatsoever. So please simply enter the word enter into the chat or into the comments. If you're still on the live here, obviously if you're watching this after it's gone live, there's no point in entering because it's over. So let me see here. Our winter selection sale is also on as well. And it's actually, you can get 20% off if you go to our website and take a look at any item that's actually labeled as pre-sale is a winter selection item. So that those will be freshly harvested and posted in November. But you can already reserve your winter items by buying them in advance, so that they don't go, because they do sell out. A lot of them do. The tuberous vegetables and especially the willow cuttings and the poplar cuttings, they've been quite popular. Poplar has been popular. Actually, the willow has been even more so, more popular than the poplar. So what we'll do here is, so the winner will receive a 50 € voucher for our online shop. And we're going to pick a winner now in a moment. Again, one more time in case you've just entered, or if you just joined us, just type the word enter in all capital letters into the chat to enter the free draw for a 50 € voucher. Sorry you guys had to hear that too often. But with logistical things like that, we better make sure that it is very clear. And we're trying to be very clear. So, and we're going to pick a winner. Oh, bear with me for 1 second. Sorry, you guys have to hang in there. We're just picking a winner at random now, and the winner will receive the voucher. The winner is Elizabeth. Congratulations. You can email, please, Elizabeth, can you email me at contact@gardensforlife.ie, and please just send me a screenshot of your account if you don't mind, or just do it straight after the show, and we will send you details after that. Congratulations. And for those of you who didn't win, don't worry, we'll have more of these draws next weekend, or next week on Thursday. We'll have another live chat. We'll do another draw for something, probably something in season. We have pumpkins actually coming in now. So this is our first Oshiki-kuri pumpkin that we've harvested this year. Of course, our little boy Jacob didn't want to not harvest it. And it looks like this one is ready. This one here was harvested a little bit prematurely. You can see the color is not quite there yet. It's a bit more yellow. And let me take a look here. But it'll be fine, you know, you can still eat it. And this would be better for storage though. If you want to store your pumpkins, like Oshiki-kuri is perfect for storage for 3 to 6 months, just make sure you cure them somewhere in a warm and dry place, like on a table in a greenhouse or on a windowsill for like a couple of weeks, and that thickens the skin and it helps to preserve the pumpkin inside. We're still suffering with our courgette issue. I forgot to show you these. So the best way to harvest a courgette is about that size or smaller. And this has gone a little bit too big. It could still be used, and don't get me wrong, you could always just fill it with something like a bit of mince or whatever. But you know what? We don't mind if we catch them big, if we let them grow a little bit too big and we harvest them. We'll just harvest a crate of these pretty much every 3 or 4 days. And if they get too big, we just throw them to the chickens, and that's perfect. They love them. The rabbits don't like to eat courgettes, and the dogs, not really. No, they're not really into them. You're welcome, Elizabeth. Congratulations. So on winning the contest. It's not really a contest. It's actually just a free draw. So we do these every Thursday anyway. So, and if you'd like to support us, you can, well, you know, you can buy something. You can buy some plants on our website. Here's the domain name. And you can also support us by becoming a member of the Gardens for Life support community. And just go to gardensforlife.ie/members to find out more. And it gives you a lot of benefits. For example, a big discount and free access to our online no-dig workshop to the value of €69 actually, and some ebooks as well, and some other bits and pieces. We are also on Patreon under Birdland Homestead, in case you're over on Patreon, if you have already signed up there. So let me see here. I'll just put the link for the online shop. And if you'd like to, into the chat, and if you'd like to get 20% off, we have our winter selection pre-sale on now. Use early bird 24 for 20% off. Thank you guys for your support, and thanks for joining us today. It's been 50 minutes now. I've been very tired today. Went out camping with the young fella a few days ago, and it just destroyed me completely. I had a sore leg for a few days after lying down on an air mattress, and I even doubled them up as well. Air mattresses not what they used to be. Little air mattresses don't do the job, even though I used to. And couldn't really get a good night's sleep there a few days ago, so I'm still kind of trying to catch up now this week. I'm so sorry the contest has been finished already. The winner has already been picked for those of you still trying to enter. But don't worry, come back next Thursday and try to enter the next contest then. And we will see you next week. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye.